Morning artists. Today we're going to be pottering about with some watercolour butterflies. They're going to be simple and they're going to be for beginners. So grab a cup of tea and we'll make a start. Hi everyone, it's Alison here from the Pottering Artist. Today we're going to paint 3 simple watercolour butterflies. They're going to be for beginners and the skill level will be nice and low. If you want the outline for these butterflies, just email me. My email's in the box below and I'll send you the outline. If you just want to draw loose butterflies, that's fine. If you want to learn how to perceive, proceed and paint like an artist and get good instruction for beginners and up, please subscribe to my channel. New videos come out every Saturday. If you click the little red box in the bottom right hand corner of this video, you'll get alerts, but you will also need to click the grey bell and you'll need to allow YouTube notifications on your mobile phone. Okay, so let's begin. I've got watercolour paper which is being stretched and it's on a watercolour board. This means when I paint on it, it won't buckle. If you've only got a piece of watercolour paper that hasn't been stretched, like that, a loose piece or a piece in your watercolour pad, that will do for today. This is a simple exercise. I've got another video on how to stretch watercolour paper in my video selections. So I've got 3 butterflies here, all different shapes and different sizes, and the techniques we're going to use today will be controlled and dry colour. You'll learn to blend colour that's going on top of a dry painting. So there'll be 2 techniques today. So if you want to make a note of the colours that I'm going to use, I'll call those out now. So the colours I'm going to use for this butterfly will be Cadmium Red Deep and Cerulean Blue. If you haven't got those exact colours, just use something similar or you make your own choice of colours. My colours are Winsor Newton Professional Artist Quality Tube Paints. But again, use whatever you've got for now. Then for the next butterfly, this one, we're going to be using Burnt Umber, Winsor Violet and some Cadmium Yellow Pale. So again, if you haven't got those, you can use any brown, any purple and any yellow. Okay? If you can't draw butterflies, you can, as I mentioned, have this outline sent to you and you can print it off. And then you can use a sheet of trace down like this or Cerulean to put the image on the paper. Sorry, to put that on the paper and then that on top. And then you can trace the image down. So don't let not being able to draw stop. I've got 2 nice big jugs of clear cold water and the brushes I'll use today will be a size 1 watercolour round brush. It's synthetic, it's not expensive. Then a size 5 watercolour round brush. Then maybe a size 10 watercolour round brush and then a 1/2 inch flat brush. All of these, the links for them are in the description below. So wetting your brushes. You need to wet your brushes by dunking them all in the water and giving them a little tap on the base of the jug because all the air bubbles will come out then. If you just dip it in like that, the inner hairs will not get wet and it won't work as well. So then you bring your brushes out of that jug, give them a flick into your palette and then wipe the handles, wipe the shafts so that you've got no beads of water running down to spoil your butterflies. So I lay my brushes at the side then so that I've got them to hand when I'm ready to use them so they're activated. So we'll start with the blue and the red butterfly. I just love all the little white spaces and we're going to leave these as white paper rather than use masking fluid today. So I'll show you how I do that. So let me zoom in a little bit closer on this butterfly. Okay, so let's go. So starting with about a size 5 brush, I'm going to start wetting the butterfly with clear water. So I'm wetting that wing, the top half of this wing, with water this water will soak in and give us a nice moist area in which to drop colour. Then I'll moisten this other wing. The paper I'm using is Saunders Waterford rough paper, and it's £140 or 300 GSM. 300 GSM is what they'd use in the USA, £140 is what we use in Great Britain. So then onto the bottom wings now. I'm not going to wet these blobby areas here, because as you can see in there they are left white. So I'm going to be careful and just only wet the area right up to and around those little patches of white. You might ask, well, why don't I just paint the blue paint and the red paint straight on? And the answer is because if I did that, every brush stroke I made on this dry paper would be a hard edged mark. When I'm painting butterflies today, I want my first brush strokes to be nice and soft and let watercolour look like a watercolour. So it's a little bit fiddly, painting right to the outline of your butterfly. It takes a bit of time, but it'll be worth it. And anyway, we're pottering about, so why have we got to hurry? If I was doing this and I wasn't filming it, I would take my time. I only go a little bit faster on the videos because the videos take a long time to upload, so I try to be as efficient with my time as possible so that they don't take hours and hours to get to you. But I'd advise you, if you're doing this for yourself, just take a bit more time, you know. Be in the moment as you wet the paper. Value this bit of the process, even though there's no coloured paint going on or anything. Value this as a mindful way of just being with yourself and your awareness as you paint and prepare the ground for the butterfly. So I'll wet the body as well. Okay, so if I tip that, you might be able to see a shine on the paper. Now that paper's moist. I'll just see how the focus is on that. I think you got it quite close there. Right. So yeah, it's hard for me to see because it's quite sunny. Perhaps I need to zoom out a little bit. Do I? No, zoom out. Right. Okay. Just get this right now. Bear with me a second. Right, okay, just get that picture a bit better. Right, so if I zoom in and push it up a little bit, that should do, yeah? Okay, now while I've done that, the top wing has dried a little bit. So I'll just add a little bit more water, because when I put the wash on I really want it to flow. And if it's damp, then the paint won't flow as well. If it's damp, there's no shine on the paper. And if it's moist enough, there'll be a little bit of a sheen, a glisten on the paper, and that's what I'm waiting for, is to check that there's a shine on the paper. I'm just redoing my outline there. That could go a bit more to the edge. So this is the preparatory work we do for wetting to wet. Okay. Right, so my first colour, I'm going to go to a slightly smaller brush. No, actually, I'm lying. I'm going to stick with this size 5 brush. The first colour I'm going to pick up, I'll go for this blue. This Cerulean Blue. And I'm adding just enough water, as you can see, to get it blending on the palette and into my brush. I don't want it very thick, but I don't want it runny like that. That's too runny. So let's start dropping in this luscious blue. What I'd suggest you do is whatever you do on one side, quickly go across to the other side and do the same thing before you forget. Because as we all know, butterflies are symmetrical. That's not to say if you wanted them to be asymmetrical, you can do whatever you like. But I'm going to keep them symmetrical today. So I'm doing blue patches on the right, blue patches on the left. Let's have some blue over here as well. A big load of blue. And I'm really careful of my outline there, and I'll cut in. See now, on this dry paper, I'm getting a nice hard edge and it's not bleeding into those white patches. So we're already preserving some really crisp, nice white highlights. So let me do the same thing now on the other side before I forget and get carried away. So I've gone up 1, 2, 3, so 1, 2, 3, so I cut through 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's coming roughly there. Again, this is a good exercise to get your eye judging things better, because as artists we always want to keep our eye and our judgment really sharp. That's what artists do. We see for other people and show them things that people haven't got time to see because they're mostly rushing around. Okay, so I've got some nice patterns going there, and it's still a bit damp, so I'm going to drop in a bit more blue, and that's there as well. It is quite hard to work symmetrically, isn't it? So I'm keeping that white and that's blue. Okay, right now I'm going to rinse my brush really well, and I'm going to pick up some Cadmium Red Deep now. This is a luscious pillar box red colour, very strong. Again, I'm mixing it. It's moist. It's sort of milky, I'd say. Milky. But it's not dripping off my brush. So let's add some of that before the butterfly dries too much. So I'll drop some there. Then some the same side, that side, and let it bleed. See, it's bleeding really nicely. Let's drop some there, some there. Carry that down, bleed it across, Let's do a line across, Maybe take it out to the... Again, if you aren't marking exactly as mine, don't worry. Just try and be symmetrical. Let the paint be a patch there, so I do the same patch on the other side. Let's have a little, I'm going to do the red now separators with these white patches. Separate those, and it'll bleed a bit in some places and not in others. So there's a big patch there. There's a slightly different size patch there. Right. So roughly symmetrical, and now my painting is almost dry. There's not much water left in this butterfly. I don't know if you can see the shine on the paper or not. See? So my painting is going to have to stop now because I've got no more moisture to work with. I just zoom in on that here. So that's how it's looking at the moment. So we're going to stop and let that dry. Then we'll work on the other one, and we'll come back to this one when it's bone dry and do some fine details. So that's the first wash. Okay, see you in the next clip. So let's work on our second butterfly now. This is the brown and purple one, and it's got a little bit of cadmium yellow in there as well. What we're going to do again is avoid wetting some of these little white patches, so we'll do that with this one as well. With a clean size 5 brush again, I'm going to wet all of the areas apart from those little white patches. Because where you put the watercolour paint, then it will only flow in the wet areas of the butterfly. So you're safe, it won't flow into the areas you've left to be pure white. If you don't want to be this fiddly, you can just paint over everything with colour, and then you can use white gouache or white acrylic to make those white patches, but it doesn't look as nice, and it does then become a mixed media painting rather than a watercolour painting. But these are the options you have if you just want to do this for relaxation. You can build it however you like. Depending on where you live, the water will dry out more quickly or more slowly. This is one of the things with watercolour. The variable of water is very different everywhere, so that's why it's hard to give a hard and fast rule for the application of water in watercolour paintings. You've just got to be prepared to be very water aware. And once you're prepared to keep an eye on how damp or how moist or how wet your painting is, then you'll start to make progress with the medium. Already this top part of the wing has dried out a bit, so I'm going to put a bit more water in there to solve that. I noticed in the blue and red butterfly that it was drying out a little bit quicker than I'd hoped, and so I didn't have as much time as I wanted to float in some more red soft washes or blue soft washes. So as a beginner, doing exercises like this will give you an idea of how long you've got to paint, how long before the paper dries out, so you get to know the feel of it and it's the way it works, the way the water soaks into the cotton paper. I always recommend using 100% cotton rag paper if you can manage it, because it stays wetter much longer than wood pulp papers, the common student quality, and they are actually called artist quality papers. Papers like Bockingford, they're not made of cotton rag, they're made of wood pulp. They are good papers, but they don't stay as wet as the cotton rag. Okay, I'm going to tilt that and see if you can see the shine on it. I don't know if you can, I'll zoom out. Can you see the shine on that now? Well, it's got a nice moisture sheen on there. So I'm going to start dropping in colour now before it goes down. Actually, this bottom wing, I cock my head at 45 degrees and look towards a light source like a window, and then I can see if many of my painting areas have dried out or not. And I've done this for 25 years, so it's the only way to really see if your painting is still moist enough for you to drop in your lovely soft washes. So you need to get used to doing that. Okay, so for some burnt umber, no, actually when you're working with watercolours, always put the lighter colours on first. So in this butterfly, it's a yellow colour. So we put cadmium yellow pale on, and I've got that going on the tips. So I'm just going to drop it on the tips of the bottom wings. I'm being very precise with the tip of my brush at the outline, but I'm letting it go a bit mad when it flows up into the main body of the wing. So this is why I call it controlled wet into wet. You've got a bit of control with the outline of your subject, but what happens inside is lovely wet into wet, and watercolour being itself. And this is what we all love about watercolour, is it flows, and the viewer can see evidence of that flow, and that's what people, I think, are attracted to watercolour about. Right, I'm just going to change this one slightly from my original one because I fancy a bit of yellow in the top wing as well. So let's get that in, and I'll go around 2 of those little patches there. Same again on the other side. Once again, doing small studies like these butterflies will give you an idea of how quickly you have to work as well, because you can see, oh, you know, yes, that's drying out quickly. I need to get a wiggle on and not be slow, because otherwise my paint will dry out. So there's my yellow going on. I'm just cocking my head and looking at my butterfly again, because here in the middle it's drying out so quickly. I'm just going to pool in some more water. It's not sloshing with water, but it's enough moisture to tide me over until I get this done. So let's have now the burnt umber. It's a chocolate brown colour. And again, I leave a lot of droplets on my palette so that I can drag a droplet in rather than dipping my brush in the water jug and getting too much water. Droplets allow you to be more precise in how much water you add. So there's a hair on there. Let's get in amongst these little white things now. Can you see this beautiful bleed happening now? Now if I lift my brush up now, watch, boom, you get a big, you get a blur, you know. Now if you don't want that, you could start at the other end, so you start in and you're coming down, and it's sort of, because you're lifting the brush off away from a wet yellow area, it doesn't leave that big blur there. I'm going to do another video on basic brush strokes in watercolour as well, so that'll be coming shortly, to show you all of the little fiddly things that aren't really explained. Let's have some brown up there. Again, I'm just trying to be symmetrical as I carry on with this butterfly. Alright, so we've got some brown going on now, and I want to make these wings a bit browner, so I'm adding some more burnt umber, a bit stronger, a little droplet more water. So let's start right here and drag. See, I love this. You drag it and it sort of bleeds. So start right there. And then flaring out. Right, I'm going to rinse my brush again. Let's move on to the purple, because as I'm tilting my head at 45 degrees and looking at that bottom, the bottom wings, I can see they're drying a little bit again. So let's get the Winsor Violet. This is a really strong colour. If I want to weaken it, I just add more water. And if I want it stronger, I just take more paint from the well. So adding water will dilute it down. Right, let's see what happens with this now. I'm going to start doing all these little wiggly lines around these white patches to really make them pop. And if you do this quickly while your butterfly wing is still wet, you will get, it'll bleed as it's doing now. So I'm using the tip of my brush very finely and cutting around, tracing around those little white bits and dragging it down to there, trying to be roughly the same as the other side. Right, I fancy having just a blob there and just a blob there. Should we just drag this purple down and go like that? So I'm going to drag the purple down and go like that. And then maybe we'll pat it. Pat, 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 pat. Pat, 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 pat. Alright. And then just for balance, let's maybe have a little bit of purple. Like that. Right, so that's that one. So that's how we're looking at the moment. I'm not going to do any more because I want to let them dry, and then I'll come back and do some final detail. See you in the next clip. The butterfly is bone dry now. It's had about an hour to dry and it's very hot today in the attic. If your butterfly isn't bone dry before we proceed to the next step, I'd gently dry it with a hairdryer. Generally I don't recommend hair drying because it does dull the brilliance of the colours, but you must make sure that your painting is bone dry before you do what I'm about to do, which is add extra colour on top of a watercolour. Adding colour, you either need to do it when the painting is still moist, as we did in the earlier clip, or you wait until the painting is bone dry and then you can put more colour on and do it that way. The middle ground, adding colour when the painting is damp, neither one thing nor the other, will result in disturbance of a semi-dry paint, and that gives us cauliflowers, cabbages, you know, those back runs. Okay, so we will just try now and add some more detail using this. In this blue and red butterfly, say we wanted to add this sort of, as a black made from blue and red actually, we wanted to add this blue colour and we wanted a dark colour and we wanted it to sort of bleed. We didn't want it to go on and leave a hard edge. What we can do is this. Take a size 5 brush and moisten it. I've just got clear water on here now, and I'm going to moisten all of this area. Again, very gently, very lightly. I'm moistening the watercolour that we finished and that was dry. If you do this very gently, you won't disturb the previous colour underneath. So I'm just going to wet that little passage of the painting, just that little area, okay? Now I'm going to mix up a very strong mix with my small size 1 brush of Cadmium Red Deep and some Cerulean Blue, and it gives us this really almost, you know, a blackish colour when I add some more blue now. Keep adding some more blue to that. You see how dark that goes? Now that, and a little droplet of water just to make it a bit less viscous. Now that's thin cream texture. It's much more gooey than what we've used before. And I'm going to mix it this colour because I want it to flare quite strongly. So see if I drop that in now. I'll zoom in for you. I'm dropping this in and it's flaring really beautifully up. Let's do some there. I'm going to leave the central bit a bit blue there. Okay, so I've got a soft edge along there. I haven't got a hard edge. So I'll do the same with the other bottom of the butterfly. So clear moist water with my size 5 brush. Just get this water on lightly and gently. You know, don't scrub at it. The gentler you are, the less disturbance you'll cause the previous wash, which is now bone dry. So I'm moistening this area just to give it enough of a margin for this dark red, blue, black that I've made to float up into. And that's nice and moist now. It's not sloshing around with water, but it's moist enough to help this dark really bleed, you see? You see that bleeding there now? And this is watercolour doing its thing. This is the capillary action. I'm skimming around there. So we've got these little sort of eyes. Let me redo that one. They're like eyes, aren't they, at the bottom of the butterfly's wing. And I'm just trying to mimic the same symmetry as the other side. And it goes to about there. And that's that. So again, we've got a soft edge there. So that's how that's looking. Let's carry on practicing this technique. So if I want some dark right in the middle of the red area here, if I put it on now without wetting the paper, I'm just going to get a hard mark. It won't bleed softly. We need the water to help it spread out. So again, I'm just going to re-wet very lightly all over this red passage here. Just re-wet that area only. That's it. And then straight away come with that strong mix. And I can put some of this dark colour on there now, see? And doesn't it give a lovely soft bleed? Let's do the other side while we remember the shape. So again, I'm wetting all of this red passage. Don't worry if you go over the white or the blue a little bit, as long as you got that red passage moist, ready to receive some thicker paint, but put on with a smaller brush for a bit of control. I'm loading up the brush again. I rub my brush on the side like that. If you just go boop, 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 you're not going to pick any paint up. So roll it on, really charge your brush full of pigment like that. And then when you drop it on, you get this lovely soft bleed. And that's how you blend in watercolour. On top of watercolour that's dried, you add some water, then you drop in some colour and it bleeds very gently. Okay, so I'm going to now bring this to a little bit of a conclusion. I'm using this lovely dark again for the body. That's the abdomen, this is the thorax, and then we've got his head, and he's got two of those compound eyes, those magnificent butterfly eyes. There's not much detail here, I'm just thinking of them as I'm painting them. And then these lovely antennae. I'm using the tip of this brush. It's a very big brush, it's a size 10, but if you use the last two hairs sticking out of it, you can get quite detailed effect there. Right. I feel though that maybe the tips, the white tips, are a little bit left on their own, so I'm going to just drag the brush, encompass it with a little dark line, and maybe go like that, just to sort of bring that in. Taper it down, and same on the other side. And I think I'm going to leave this butterfly alone, because you can keep on adding more and more and more. The trick is to just start a new butterfly and keep your watercolours fresh. So I hope that's given you some idea of butterfly technique. I'll move on now to the last one and give it a bit more strength in areas, and we need a central body as well, obviously. So the central body was going to be one thing, don't leave your watercolour brushes standing up in your water jar, because they will start to bend over and you'll end up with a pair of golf clubs, okay? Always take them out and lay them flat. Right, so the body here, look, let's do some more, some dark passages first. So again, this butterfly is dry completely. Now I'm going to show you on this one what happens when you just put colour on. This is the burnt umber. Really blend it nicely with this flat 1/2 inch brush. Pick up some colour. Now when I put colour on this one, because I haven't wet it, it's just going to stay put. You see? There's no bleed there at all. So I'm just making a sort of fan shape using the tip of this brush, just sort of scooping it round a little bit like that. And tapering it off with those brushes there. And then we'll do some stamping now. So stamp, 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 stamp. And then make them lighter and smaller as you go on. Let's do some heavier stamps now. The bigger ones are here. And then lighter and less pressure as you go on. So this is painting wet paint on the dry butterfly. So one last time, I'd like a separator between the top tail wing and the bottom wing. So I'm going to just take a moist size 5 brush and just brush on about 1 centimetre of water, and quickly, same colour, drop that in. See, and it's got a hard edge on this side, but a soft edge where it bleeds into the moisture. So you got both things, hard edge and soft edge. This will make your paintings really start to look, you know, more accomplished, and you'll show the finesse of watercolour, and you'll show yourself that you're sort of getting these techniques, which they take a while to practice. So again, I've wet this area here. Zoom in again. And I'm going to just pat in, chip, 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 chip away, pat in that brown, and then taper it off to nothing there. Gone out. And so that has separated the top wing from the bottom wing, hasn't it? It's sort of given us a bit of lift. So I think we'll call it a day now. Let's get the little abdomen on. I'm not putting much detail on there. You could put as much detail as you want. I'm leaving a few little chinks. So I hope this demonstration has shown you some techniques, and will encourage you now to do the third butterfly, which I've left unpainted on purpose for you now to pick your own colours from your palette that you've got and do one on your own. Okay, and if you'd like to share that with me, you can email it to me at my email address in the description, and I'll post it on my blog called The Pottering Artist, and you could be in with a chance to win a £19 or $25 print, an animal print from my Etsy shop. So there we have our 2 butterflies, and that's how they're looking at the moment. So yes, if you send in your work, you can have the chance to, I make a draw at on the end of the month of all the people that have entered work to me, and I randomly pick one, and you can have a print of your choice from my shop. Okay, this one hasn't been worked to the same degree of finish as that one, but that might encourage me to have a play another day. So have a go of this one on your own. Remember, you can wet it first, drop in some soft colour, let it all dry. Then you can come back and maybe just wet a little area, drop in some colour and let that dry. So have fun, and don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.